Today, I'd like to continue our journey through the book of Deuteronomy. We've been looking at lately at chapter 9 of that amazing book, that farewell discourse of Moses to the people. And it raises a very interesting point at the end of chapter 9. Moses is at a point where he is intervening with God for the people. And the reflection is that God is kind of upset with the people, as frequently God would get upset with them because they were kind of doing their own thing and they weren't really following God that much. And so frequently in the book of Exodus, and we see it in Leviticus and Numbers, God has this interaction with the people, and they're like, gee, we want to go back to Egypt. We've had it here, and God, the food is bad. We've had it with this bread, and we need more water. We need more this. We need more that. And the thought is God kind of losing patience with the people. God saying they're a stiff-necked people. They don't realize all the good that I've done for them. And so Moses intervenes with God for the people to spare them. This raises a fascinating point about theology and about prayer that many have reflected on. And that is the theology of what we call divine freedom, in that the Lord can have a change of heart. So here you have this portrait of God wanting to do certain things to the people, and Moses intervening, and God saying, no, because you made that point, or because you said this, I'm not going to do that. And so it's interesting. God kind of changing the mind of God. And God saying, yes, I wanted to do this, but now I'm going to do that. We kind of don't really always look at God in that way. And so when we see this in the book of Deuteronomy, it kind of causes us to pause a little bit and say, aha, can something that I do, or something that I say, or something that I ask actually change the mind of God? We would think, well, that's pretty impossible. Little old me changing God's mind, that's not going to happen. Well, maybe it happened with Moses, but it can't happen with me, or that type of thing. Uh, but it's an interesting point here. It's a sign of God truly listening to a human being, Moses, and God changing a course of action. So it shows us the power of prayer. It shows us our own power in terms of relationship with God and speaking with God and sharing with God. And it causes us to stop and pause and say, maybe I do have this ability in some ways to change the mind of God. And maybe God does listen to me in a deeper way than maybe I thought God listened to me. Those are perhaps some of the implications of what we see here in the book of Deuteronomy. And again, it's just something that is certainly described there, something that we see and observe, and then to reflect on and ponder in terms of our own relationship with God and that dynamic of speaking with God. In chapter 10 of the book of Deuteronomy, as Moses journeys on in this farewell discourse, he recounts how he brought 2 tablets up the mountain of God to write on a second time. So the first time, of course, the people are turning away from God, or at least that was the impression that Moses had when they had that calf that they were dancing around and partying around. So Moses gets the impression, at least, that, hey, what are they doing here? They're abandoning what God wanted. They seem to be worshiping this calf instead of God, and perhaps that wasn't the way that the people necessarily intended it at that time, but that's the way Moses took it, and so he throws the tablets down, destroys them in his anger at what he saw, And you can understand, he'd been up with God and in prayer with God, and he came down and was upset, certainly, with what he saw. So he went up a second time. And a second time, God wrote on the tablets. Again, it shows us a little bit of an insight into the patience of God, and also to the persistence of Moses, and Moses' commitment to his faith and commitment to his relationship to God. Moses also made an ark out of acacia wood to put the tablets in. The ark also contained Aaron's staff and a vessel of manna from the wilderness. So these were the three elements that we see in the ark, and the ark is going to be placed in the temple in the Holy of Holies, and it's considered to be a very special remembrance of God because it had those elements in it that showed really the direct intervention of God, those tablets, that staff that was so powerful, and of course the manna from the desert. The tribe of Levi would carry the ark and minister to the Lord and the people, so that was their special role with the ark, the role that was given to them by God through Moses. Moses encourages the people to remain faithful to God and to circumcise their hearts, so that they will be open to the word of God. It's a different type of circumcision, isn't it? Not the circumcision of the flesh, but the circumcision of the heart. And Moses refers to it here in Deuteronomy 10, and certainly St. Paul is going to pick up on this same theme in his letter to the Romans. He writes about the idea of a different type of circumcision, the circumcision of the heart. We get sometimes so involved in the physical. What about the spiritual? What about our hearts? Our hearts need to be in relationship to God, not just our physical being, but our spiritual being, our hearts, the whole person, relationship with God. God is mighty, Moses points out, and as mighty, he has no favorites, and he accepts no bribes. Interesting, right? God has no favorites. Many times we say, well, he seemed to choose the Jewish people, but the idea of the Jewish people not being favorites, in the sense that all of us have been chosen through this choice of the Jewish people. It's a universal choice. It's a choice for all. Just as we say in terms of salvation that Jesus came for all. These are covenants that are made for all. The covenant with Moses, Jesus' promise of new life. It's for all. Salvation is a gift for all. Forgiveness for all. And certainly God accepts no bribes from anyone. God seeks justice for the widow and the orphan. God befriends the alien, and the importance of feeding and clothing the alien is brought out in the section in Deuteronomy chapter 10. So the importance of really caring for others comes out and being truly just. The Israelites must remember that they also were once aliens in the land of Egypt, so they should have special care for those who are the foreigners, the aliens, those who are on the margins, those who aren't part of any tribes, those who are lonely, to seek them out in a special way, because that's what God did for the people. They were foreigners in Egypt. They were despised. They were looked down upon. But God did not look down upon them. God cared for them. God showed love for them. Their ancestors went down to Egypt. Moses recounts that they were 70 strong, and now they are as numerous as the stars of the sky. So they have grown. And this is an invitation to all of us to see the power of God. Now, God can grow not only in terms of the people and the special people of the covenant, but God can grow within us, and we can grow even closer to God.